No amount of text or oral tutoring will prepare you for what you're about to see. Your courage must come from within.
Well, no time to footle.
We must all get ready now.
Wingardium Levin Sulfur something. This is Dragon, and I think I found it. This is the worst fantasy film I've ever seen.
So far.
And let me tell you, this movie, it's something else. I mean, this right here is 100% locally grown awful, and it comes with all the features of a bad fantasy B-movie, like terrible acting.
Where was this battle?
Errol.
They've taken Errol?
And Tin again.
Then they're less than a week from Tyra's flame.
What is your business here?
And bad CG, you know, the usual. However, where a lot of bad fantasy movies have these qualities, this movie managed to be so bad it nearly broke me. I have rarely experienced pain watching a movie, and this is so boring, so much nothing. I'd rather be entombed in a vat of cold spaghetti than rewatch this film. This film was produced by The Asylum, the same people who brought you all those classic terrible movies like Atlantic Rim, Titanic 2, and Trollland.
With nearly 1,000 points, young Jarvik here is well on her way to becoming this year's Frank Queen.
Oh my god, what's wrong with them? Ugh. The Asylum is sort of famous for producing lots of movies called mockbusters, which are basically movies made with the intention of exploiting the publicity of recently released blockbusters, hence the name mockbuster. And usually these mockbuster films borrow similar titles and stories like the films they're ripping off. To me, The Asylum has always been hit or miss when it comes to the enjoyability of their movies. Sometimes their stories are so over the top they're fun, others feel like they're trying too hard to be one of those so bad it's good movies, and others are just flat out bad. Now this movie was released in the year of our Lord 2006, alongside another infamously bad fantasy film called Aragon. You know, that one movie based on a book series called The Inheritance Cycle by this guy named Christopher Spaghetti or something? Yeah, it's that movie. And this right here is a mockbuster of it. Ah yes, Aragon, the critically acclaimed work. That's the kind of film I want to make a mockbuster of. Seriously though, how is this even a mockbuster of anything from 2006? Let alone Aragon for that matter. This film was about a group of people going out to slay a dragon, and that kind of story isn't even close to Narnia or Aragon. Plus it looks nothing like Lord of the Rings, which ended almost 3 years earlier. So what, or rather who is this film trying to be? I don't know. I don't know. You know how mockbusters usually try to make the titles and covers of their films seem at least a little like the blockbusters they're trying to rip off? You know how Atlantic Rim looks like Pacific Rim, how Transmorphers looks like Transformers, how The Terminators looks like Terminator, and so on and so forth. I don't even know what they're trying to do here with this title. Dragon. This font looks like something you'd find printed on a museum toy. What was this supposed to mean? The epic trilogy of swords and sorcery begins? What? There's more? Please tell me there isn't more. Let me do a quick check. Let's see. Thank God. I genuinely don't know how they would have continued this as a trilogy. And honestly, it's probably for the best. We'll never find out either. I like how this cover says it has the action of Reign of Fire. You know, the movie with people who shoot guns at dragons in a dead, desolate wasteland? Ah, yes, this movie, what with its sword fighting in a lush Wisconsin national park and 3 poorly shot dragon encounters. That reminds me of Reign of Fire. Oh look, it's even claiming it has the adventure of Lord of the Rings. You know what my favorite part of Lord of the Rings was? The fights I couldn't see, and the slow walking through the same forest again and again and again. Ah yes, this film captures Lord of the Rings perfectly. Like what does this movie want to be? Does it want to be a modern action fantasy movie like Reign of Fire? Does it want to be Lord of the Rings? Like, make up your mind, movie, jeez. Well, enough of the background and history and stuff. Let's just get right into the summary. The back of this DVD explains the film thusly. In the first story of this epic trilogy, thank God that's not happening, the great kingdom of Tirasplayne, well, that's a weird name. Oh, okay. Is under siege. Its young princess is given her first and greatest quest to enlist the help of neighboring Lord Blackthorn. But first she must pass through the Black Forest of Sidhe, home to the most ferocious beasts known to man. By the end, many will fall and a hero will rise. Well, at least the blurb is concise this time, so at least that's a plus. But somehow it's managed to tell us absolutely everything and absolutely nothing at the same time. Like, who's besieging the kingdom? Is it the dragon? Is it a very large chicken? I don't know. What's the most ferocious beast known to man? Is that the dragon? Why don't you just say it's a dragon? Maybe it's because the dragon, I don't know, might not be in the movie all that much. Who knows? Well, I've stalled long enough, so let's get into Dragon. Oh my god, I don't think you people are ready. I don't think you're ready. I don't think you're ready for this. We open the movie with 2 minutes of mountain stock footage in the credits, where the only thing outside of the credits on the mountains is this horribly loud music that's way too exciting for what's happening on screen. Fuck yeah, it's the, Rockies! I guess they needed to fill in the runtime somehow. Anyway, this leads into some pretty terrible exposition with a narrator explaining to us that there's a war between humans and dark elves.
Years ago, a great war waged between mankind and the soulless dark elves of the Forest of Scythe. They asked for peace and resolution, and in turn, the dark elves mercilessly struck again. They would not rest until every human had been murdered. Their evil spread like wildfire. Kingdoms lost under the shroud of night. In desperation, the land of Tirasplayne expelled its last mission of hope.
Isn't this movie called Dragon? Is the introduction going to mention anything about a dragon? No! I also like how the narrator is talking about how there's this war between the dark elves and humans, but all the bad CG soldiers in this scene are the exact same model fighting one another. And this here is only a taste of what is to come, so hold on to your butts, everybody. It's only gonna get worse from here. Well, anyway, lots of human nations have fallen during the war, and now the princess from Tirasplayne is on the run. Though if you were watching the movie, you might not know the name of her kingdom is Tirasplayne, because aside from the princess, no one else can seem to pronounce its name right.
They're less than a week from Tirasplayne.
Okay, so it's Tirasplayne. Alright, cool.
The land of Tirasplayne
Tissue Kleenex?
for defending the land of Tirasplayne.
Tirasplayne? Where the heck did you get the name Tirasplayne from? My brain is melting. Well, she's on the run now, trying to get away from the battle and hopefully get some help for her kingdom. First, what kind of setup is this? If you're going to have an opening to your movie giving us exposition, it should establish the world, what it looks like, frame the core conflict, and help lead into the start of the movie. The opening of this movie tells us about the Dark Elves, about how the Dark Elves come from the forest nearby or something, about the war, about the betrayal of the elves, about how this nation called Tirasplayne has one last hope, which isn't specified to us. And this leads us into the opening scene where a person is running through the woods. Now obviously this is the princess from the kingdom of Tissue Kleenex, but right off the bat you wouldn't know that because the narrator didn't tell you who she is, where she's going, or what the mission to help her country even is. Star Wars A New Hope is a good example of an opening that sets up the world and plot right at the start of the film. The way Star Wars A New Hope opens introduces you to all the important and pertinent information a person going into the film needs to know, so that when we open to the first shot of the movie, you can understand what's happening. I talked about this in my Knights of the Damned review, so I won't be going into more detail than that. Weirdly enough, Aragon, the movie Dragon is a mockbuster of, is terrible, and it still manages to open its movie better. At the start of Aragon, we're given a similar bout of exposition, and it establishes who the main factions are, the main historical event that will define the core conflict of the story. We even get a glimpse at the main bad guy and their motivation. And hell, at least we get a tiny peek at the map of the world. To kind of give you a better idea of what I'm talking about, just take a look at Aragon's opening for yourself.
There was a time when the fierce and beautiful land of Allegasia was ruled by men astride mighty dragons. And for thousands of years the people prospered. But the riders grew arrogant and began to fight among themselves for power. Sensing their weakness, a young rider named Galbatorix betrayed them. And in a single bloody battle, believed he had killed them all. Since then, our land has been ruled by Galbatorix. He crushed all rebellion, including the freedom fighters known as the Varden. Those that survived fled to the mountains. There, they hoped for a miracle that might even their odds against the king. Our story begins one night as Arya, an ally of the Varden, rides for her life, carrying a stone stolen from the king himself.
So as you can see, by the time Aragon starts, at least we understand what's happening and who is who and why that's important. That movie is a headache in 24 frames per second, and it did a better job at setting up its world than this one did. Jesus Christ, I'm in grave pain. Princess Allura, yeah, that's her name, played by Amelia Jackson Grey, is fleeing through the woods until some dark elves show up to capture her. That is, if you want to call them dark elves, because oh my God, what sort of design is this? Look at that hair, that smirk, that face paint. I can't believe they managed to get my landlord in a fantasy movie and then put their face on one of the many posters for this film, because that's the face I'd want representing the villains of my story. Let me say, this shit sure does scare the goo right out of me. However, the Dark Elves take her captive in one of the worst surrenders I've ever seen. Why is the music so loud? What did she say? Oh, my ears are fucking. I like how she was just straight up ready to give herself up right then and there. Who knew it would be that easy? It's almost like the princess of a major kingdom sent on a mission of great importance should have been escorted with some type of armed protectors. Oh well. Before the elves can say anything to her, a dragon shows up. And while the dark elves are distracted, the princess makes a break for it. And as the elves chase after the princess, one of them is gobbled up by the dragon. I mean, do I even have to make a comment about how this dragon looks? At least the dragon matches the one they used for the cover and isn't some art they straight up stole or something. Anyway, the dragon blasts its breath at this poor defenseless tree in the hopes of hitting the princess. But after that, it just flies off. You're not going to continue to hunt the princess or the other elf? No? Oh, okay then. And as the princess marvels at the wildfire, the production crew started in the woods. The last elf manages to catch the princess, but not before two hooded strangers find them. Oh my God, you don't see these guys standing there? Jesus, he's just backing her into these two guys like, seriously, man? I don't, why is he flourishing his sword? Oh, fuck, this is terrible. Jesus. Because the elf clearly didn't see these two tall, imposing strangers right in front of him. The two hooded dudes get the jump on the elf and they beat the tar out of him. Though it turns out that these two hooded guys are friendly rangers and are from the princess's kingdom. And wait, the voice of one of those rangers sounds strangely familiar.
Your Majesty.
I know of you.
Oh hey, it's Fabian! Sir Hamelot has once again returned! What a lovely and terrible surprise. This guy's real name is Artemir, and he's played by the actor John Paul Gates, who's from other movies I've reviewed here on the channel. But since I'm used to calling him Fabian, which is the name of his character in Knights of the Damned and Dragon Kingdom, that's what I'm just gonna call him from now on. And after finishing off the elf, they decide to escort her away to where I don't know, just someplace, I guess. And there's also this other guy with Fabian, his name is like Kador or something. Yeah, that's his name. And he's played by Matt Wolf, though they use his name like 2 times in the movie, so I'll call him whatever I feel like instead. Anywho, the ranger guy asks the princess what she was doing there in the first place. Well, the princess tells the rangers her father charged her with the task of traveling to Bagnar Brim. The king told her to go there and talk to some dude named Lord Blackthorn and ask him for aid in their war against the Dark Elves. So just a few things. Again, why was she not escorted? Where is Bagnar Brim? Map, please. Map. Why was it not brought up in the opening monologue? Who is this lord dude? like I'm losing my mind. After their conversation, the Rangers offer their hand to escort the princess and give her a convenient pair of clothes so she can hide her identity while, of course, still wearing her pearls and jewelry. Also, this ranger dude just rummages through the bushes and finds a perfectly ripe sword in the foliage for the princess to use. I hate this film so much. What? Like, what? Really? Ah, yes, the swords are particularly ripe this season. I can't even. The princess asks the Rangers why they were in the woods, outside of filming being cheap and accessible, of course. And Fabian explains that they were separated from their division. The princess seems happy at first because they can regroup with the division, but Fabian explains that they're the only ones left, because of course they are. Upon hearing the war is taking its toll on her people, and the kingdom is dying, the princess orders her rangers to make haste to Bagnar Brim to get help. However, they're afraid that if they take a direct route, they could encounter a legion of dark elves, which they can't face on their own, of course. So instead, the princess suggests they go through the forest of Sid to avoid them. It's also mentioned the forest is guarded by a necromancer named Freya and her fire drake. Okay, why are they going into the forest again? Isn't that also where the dark elves are from?
A great war waged between mankind and the soulless dark elves of the Forest of Scythe.
So the forest is guarded by a dragon, a necromancer, and is home to the dark elves who are nothing but hostile toward human beings. But no, traveling a pathway where they might encounter just the elves is small brain stuff. Going through the dark elves' home, which is also the realm of a dragon and necromancer, now that's enlightened thinking. Seriously though, that's some Zap Brannigan logic if you ask me.
Our path was set by the travel agency.
That's for schoolgirls. Now here's a route with some chest hair.
Though despite the danger, the group makes way for the Forest of Sid. And not long after, with no time to foodle, they head inside its dark interior. And by dark, I mean this ugly blue tint we'll have to look at for the rest of the movie. But our band of three stooges hears something stirring in the woods. And as they seek cover, a group of vandals gets a jump on them in our first major fight of the movie. And honestly, this fight is pretty ridiculous, because it's less of a fight and more of a romp between these Vandal characters and the Rangers, where all they seem to do is fall over one another and thrash at each other in the most nonsensical ways possible. I mean, some of the moments in this fight are almost like a gag you'd find in a Buster Keaton silent film or something. And the fight is made all the more funny if you play old-time music over it. You know, at least I can sort of see what's happening. You know, now that I think about it, that actually might be a bad thing. My eyes can only take so much of this. After Fabian and the other ranger guy beat the tar out of the random forest people, we're introduced to Short Guy, Crack Lady, and this guy, their leader. And let me say, this guy's got it all. The wall hanger claymore, the modern tattoo, the horrible dialogue.
It's not Kangful. Get off your nays.
Yes. Move out of the way, William Wallace. Here comes Dude Heart. His name is like Gareth or something, but I like Dude Heart more, so that's what I'm gonna call him for the rest of the movie. After they all get talking, Dude Heart offers the princess the service and protection of his company in return for some land. And much to the disapproval of Fabian, the princess agrees because they have experience slaying a dragon called, like, the Basilisk of Kensington or something. I mean, basilisks don't tend to be flying creatures. They're more like big old snakes and stuff, so I'm not so sure how prepared they are to fight an airborne predator like a dragon, but whatever. But before long, the dragon bellows its terrible generic roar, and they flee into the woods and crouch behind a tree to hide from it. Luckily, our heroes are just out of the dragon's aggro zone, so it just moves right past them and doesn't notice them at all. After that brief encounter, they slowly walk through the woods some more. Oh my god. This is all fantasy is now. It's just woods. Slow walking and woods. This movie, woods. These movies, more woods. The only saving grace with the last few movies I reviewed here on the channel is that they at least try to mix it up here and there. We get to see the inside of a castle in Knights of the Damned. We get to see a camp in Dragon Hunter. And hell, at least we get some variation in Dragon Kingdom. This movie has the most uninteresting location I have ever seen in a movie. It is literally the same damn forest the entire movie. It is a green hell hidden under a veil of disgusting blue. At the end of the day, mixing up your locations is important to the fantasy genre, because fantasy stories typically take place in huge, diverse worlds. Outside of breaking up the monotony of a dull location, like this average, boring-looking forest, seeing other locations throughout the story helps make the world feel bigger since we're witnessing things happening from multiple locations. Imagine if The Lord of the Rings never showed you the White Towers of Gondor, the rustic longhouses of Edoras, or the enchanting vistas of Lothlorien. And all it did show you was the same forest again and again without any diversity to it. No unique design choices or interesting aesthetics, just the same green state park for the entire film. Well, I don't know about you, but at least to me, Middle-earth would seem a lot smaller since we never see or interact with any of the cool locations throughout the world. And you know Dragon screwed up when movies like Knights of the Damned and Dragon Kingdom managed to do this better. Simon Wells, the director of Knights of the Damned and Dragon Kingdom, made cheap-as-dirt films, and he at least tried to make the world of those movies feel bigger, while also breaking up the monotony of the dull forest locations. You see what Dragon made me do? It made me have to talk positively about Dragon Kingdom, Knights of the Damned, and Dragon Hunter. Now, don't get me wrong, those films are horrible, awful, and all around bad, but I have to at least give credit where credit's due. They do, after all, visit other locations that aren't just woods, even if those films are still mostly people walking through the woods. But what about Dragon? Maybe it's one of those cheap-as-dirt films too. So it's okay that they filmed in the same forest for the entire movie, right? Well, yeah, that isn't the case here. Because this movie had a budget of, I shit you not, $500,000. They had supposedly $500,000, and this is the best makeup they could do. This is the best costume they could get. These are the best weapons they could afford. This movie looks like something people on YouTube would have made on a shoestring budget in 2007. Only if it were at least originally uploaded to YouTube, it'd be free. But in 2006, the only way to see Dragon was on DVD. So at the time, the only way people would have been able to see this movie is if they paid for it. They charged actual money for people to see this. Woods! And what's even more crazy is I've seen independent fantasy films here on YouTube made with hardly any money at all that look leaps and bounds better than Dragon. For example, I reviewed a fantasy short called Distance, and it's a 40-minute long fantasy film that looks on par with many award-winning independent films, and better than most low-budget fantasy films. In fact, Anders Overgaard, the director of Distance, had this to say at the premiere of his short film.
I'm very excited and nervous because this project is quite special. It started off just as a test video for YouTube, experimenting with the fantasy genre, and suddenly involving over 40 people with costumes, props, horses, VFX. The film is even in surround. And there's no budget. How is this possible? Well, I don't know. It's just crazy.
Like Anders said, Distance basically had no budget, but with good planning and a passionate team, they were able to create a really engaging world and story. And if these people can make a short that looks this good on a budget of basically nothing, there's little reason someone, even in the year 2006, with a budget of $500,000, could have put just the tiniest bit more effort into their movie. So you might be asking, where did all the money go? Did they spend it on the dragon? Surely the 2 minutes and 30 seconds it's on screen didn't cost what is basically $662,000 in, like today's money. I've seen indie projects filmed with less money on Kickstarter, so it's incredibly hard to believe this film had a budget of $500,000. I have seen modern art that looks more interesting and it costs less to make. Anyway, where were we? Oh yeah. But as they continue on through the woods, people start falling asleep as the princess encounters the necromancer Freya, played by Eliza Swenson, and who also just happened to write the movie. And she says some cryptic stuff to the princess about how our journey is foolhardy or something, and then she's out of there. Though it turns out the princess was the only one who was dreaming and no one else was actually asleep. Next, we cut to a girl in the woods messing with some arrows while our main heroes approach her from behind. And rather than talk to her, they sneak forth like the murder hobos they are, and were thrusted into a minor action sequence where they finally meet Freya, the necromancer of the forest. Just so we're clear, because Freya is the only normal name in the entire movie, that's honestly the only reason I bothered remembering it. As the action sequence ends and they talk to Freya, Freya claims that their plan to slink through the woods won't work, and the only way to get through the woods is to kill the dragon.
Your mission is noble, if not foolhardy. I see into the future, a gift and a curse. Some of you will not survive to see another day. The beast will claim some of you. Your plan to avoid it will not work. The dragon must be confronted and defeated if you are to continue to Bagnor Bryn.
Why? Earlier in the movie, the princess mentions how it might be possible to sneak past the dragon.
When it approached, the elves remained still. It only attacked when I turned to run.
Then it is possible to move through the forest undetected.
So is there or is there not a way to sneak past the dragon? Are you telling me the whole point of this moment was so that they could justify going through the forest? I hate this movie so much. I mean, this forest is pretty dark, big, and provides lots of cover. I sincerely doubt it's hard to sneak past one dragon. Though because there's a storm coming, the dragon won't be around. So they decide to sit down and talk some more. Fuck, this is a boring movie. Just move through the forest while the storm is around. That way you can avoid the dragon. It's not that hard. Freya psychically projects herself to speak with the princess alone, and she tells her that the king and her have a history. Basically, because the war is going south for the humans, the king asked her to use the dragon as a weapon. However, the dragon was too ravenous and could not be controlled. Not long after their conversation, there's some terrible dialogue between the princess and the ranger dude, where I think they're trying to set up a romance.
What of the sorcerer's words to you? What is this love that she talks of? My lord, you're blushing.
You overstate my emotion. And my title.
You're not yet knighted?
No. I'm but a commoner.
Something that can easily be remedied. Saving Her Majesty's life's a deserving task. If you do not wish to tell me of your personal affairs, I understand. But know this, whoever she is, she's very fortunate to have such a man devoted to her.
Indeed, I am devoted. My life is hers.
No. Stop it. Why does every one of these low-budget fantasy movies feel the need to have a romantic subplot? This is a 1 hour and 24-minute movie about a princess and several adventurers slaying a dragon in the middle of the woods. You don't need to force nor have the time for a romance between characters who have as much chemistry as a bottle of distilled water. And this horribly unromantic interaction is followed by an even worse attempt at a lighthearted moment between these two useless people.
Land and title. Can you believe it?
It was Gareth who negotiated the deal. You shall be lucky to get squatters' rights in his kingdom.
Good point.
And I, as a woman, am unable to hold land myself.
Well, if you and I would have been married...
Not even 100 spades of land could entice me to that, my friend.
You are so cruel.
Holy God, the only thing that's good about this moment is it doesn't last more than a minute or so, because right after that we jump into yet another action sequence. And yeah, it's full of nonsense. Other movies I've reviewed here on the channel can't seem to do a half-decent action sequence if they tried, but where Knights of the Damned and Dragon Kingdom had flashy, empty action sequences, Dragon can't even pull that off. I've discussed some of the elements of a good action sequence in my previous videos, and to be honest, this film is so horrible I won't honor it with the decency of a proper analysis. Instead, let me just go over some of the worst aspects of this fight. The battle is unnecessary. This fight just sort of happens, which is unfortunately an ongoing motif of this film. And honestly, the fight being unnecessary is not only one of the biggest problems with this moment here, but I'd argue it's also a problem with the rest of the action sequences in this movie too. With the only exception probably being the fight between Dudeheart and the Rangers, but even then it's still not a very good introduction to Dudeheart or his friends, so there's that for you. A good action sequence is like any other scene in a film and should be used to further the plot or develop the characters, and this fight does none of those things. Because you could basically remove this whole battle from the movie and nothing would have changed. If you were to fade from the scene before the fight to the scene right after it, you'd never know there was a battle to begin with, because characters never reference this fight again, and the fight itself doesn't play a role in the development of the characters. We learn nothing new about the characters, how they operate as a team, or anything like that, which is sad considering this could have been a good place to develop some of the characters like the princess or Dudeheart. Maybe through the fight, Dudeheart learns to be less selfish and comes closer to the group. Maybe the princess needs to step up as a leader and learn to be more confident in herself. You know, something like that. I don't know, anything would be better than just the nothing that they gave us. But no, instead of character development or something interesting like that, all we get instead is swish, swish, clang, clang. Oh, what a headache I've gained. So it shouldn't shock anyone when I say this fight is unnecessary, since the only thing it'll develop is your need to pop half a bottle of pain meds afterward. This is a 1 hour and 24 minute action-adventure fantasy movie, where the action and adventure parts are some of the reasons people are coming to see your movie, so you don't have time for necessary fight scenes or battles. In a good action-adventure film, each action sequence should be as important as any other major moment in the story. Imagine if you cut out the first major action scene from Aliens, or Tai Lung's escape scene from Kung Fu Panda. The first action scene in Aliens is important because it communicates how in over their heads the colonial marines are against the xenomorphs, and Tai Lung's escape scene serves as a way to establish how cunning and dangerous he is as a villain. These action sequences are important to their respective stories because they either push the plot forward or develop or establish the characters. If you cut these action sequences from Kung Fu Panda and Aliens, future scenes wouldn't make as much sense since important developments happened in them, and it'd be even more weird since characters reference them later on. You know, because they were important. If you're going to have an action sequence, it needs to be more than just people fighting random enemies that spawned in the woods. Action sequences are a good opportunity for characters to test their abilities, explore what makes them flawed, or act as a pivotal turning point in a film. I mean, there's so many ways to use an action sequence in your story, but adding one in just for the sake of it is like adding a pickle to an Oreo. Why would you do that? Why? Why would you do that? The combat. Most of the fight boils down to the camera flailing around while the actors noticeably soften their blows. There's an entire school of techniques dedicated to stage and performance combat to make strikes seem heavy hitting while remaining safe for the actors. Look at this. Their hits don't feel heavy, and when they do, it feels like they're going to snap the fragile wall hangers they bought at the mall. Oh wait, that happened!
The little force you're looking for?
By having proper choreography and stage combat training, even a little, that helps the audience get immersed in the action sequence since it looks, more realistic. It also keeps the actors safe and prevents them from breaking the swords. In fact, if they had just spent a little more money than these cheap swords cost, they could have afforded blunt but battle-ready weapons made specifically for stage combat, so that this doesn't keep happening during your fight scenes. In the long term, using the cheap, fragile swords will cost you more since you're having to replace them all the time, rather than spend $100 more to get perfectly functional, battle-ready ones. I guess this is as good a time as any to get into the next worst thing about this fight. Everything else. There's inconsistencies, this shaky cam headache fuel, and also the rain. Look at this. In order to give the vaguest impression there's rain, some member of the production crew had to use a hose on the actors. And of course, in the dark, evil forest, which is home to these poorly costumed Oompa Loompas, there's so much sunlight a pretty rainbow forms in the droplets. The sound effects are cheap and are either ill-placed or delayed. also there's sword flourishes. Yeah, it's all just goofy nonsense. As the battle ends with no major repercussions or development of any kind, we fade to more stock footage of mountains. Why are they showing us this mountain peak? I thought they were traveling through a forest. The entire point of overhead aerial shots like this is to give the impression of travel while also acting as a transition from one scene to the next. This isn't giving a feeling of progression or travel because it's just circling around this peak. And hell, it isn't even related to the forest. Even Knights of the Dam got this right, like, geez. Anyway, we fade to the group once again trekking through the woods. At one point, Dudeheart says he's had enough of Freya's cryptic riddles, and asks her why they're even on the quest to slay the dragon to begin with. Basically, Freya mentions she's taking them toward the dragon, and how one member of the party is the key to the dragon's destruction.
Amongst one of you is the key to its destruction. The dragon's destruction, more than anything, will ensure the safety of your kingdom.
I have a few questions. Is the dragon magical? Does the dragon have any sort of magical abilities that make it invulnerable to everyone but that one person? We're not told it does. And as far as we know, the dragon is just a dragon. A dragon she summoned, sure, but a pretty normal dragon all the same. So why is one person the key to its destruction? What makes the one person destined to slay the dragon the destined one? In fact, I wonder who this chosen one could be amongst this diverse cast of... It's the princess. The chosen one is the princess. I mean, her father's got connections to the dragon's origins. Freya has an uncomfortably strong interest in her. It doesn't take much to see it. Yeah. And since Freya, the quest-giving NPC, seems so dead set on them slaying the dragon, Dudeheart explains how difficult it is to slay a dragon and the crazy Dark Souls tactics required to do it.
The key to slaying the beast is immobilizing it. First attacking its wings, then its tail.
Its tail?
Dragon uses the tail for balance. With damaged wings and a tail, it cannot fly away. Once it is trapped, it becomes a battle of attrition. Small target attacks, always aiming at its heart.
But this one is a fire drink. How do you propose we avoid its breath?
'Tis tricky, without question. There's always a moment before it attacks, while it summons the fire from its belly. When you see that, that's the time to take cover.
The fire drake can only bring forth the blaze every few minutes or so. In between attacks is when we strike.
How will this strategy be used by our heroes? What role will each of them play in the coming battle? What sort of nail-biting, seat-clenching problems will they encounter should one of these factors in the dragon-slaying strategy go awry? How will their roles in the coming battle be tied into fulfilling their arcs? Will this strategy even be implemented by our heroes when they face the dragon? No, it will not. It's just non-stop pain for me, isn't it? Anyway, Dudeheart manages to get his point across to them that slaying the dragon won't be as easy as they think it is. But as it seems like the party is about to continue onward to the dragon's lair, we turn right back around and get into another large squabble between the characters. Oh great, now I gotta talk about the drama these characters stir up. One of the ongoing problems with this movie is that the arguments and conflicts between these characters is horribly unfocused. And they especially don't know when to cut their arguments. Because when they get these characters into a spat with one another, boy oh boy are you in for one long train of one argument after another. In this movie, arguments between characters will start and get resolved in one scene, only for them to start fighting again about a different topic in the very same scene. This scene right here is a good example of that, because we go from one fight about questioning Freya's guidance, into a spat about the lack of honor in Dudeheart's motivation, and then into a big spat about thinking for yourself, where low-key Dudeheart calls the ranger guy a simp.
Calm now, Caitlin. The only reason you stand here, defending her honor, is the hope that one day you might get taste what is most certainly her sweet nectar.
That is enough!
I don't know, I just thought that was funny. And if anything, they sometimes use these arguments as a way of giving exposition, and it's the most frustrating way of doing it I have ever seen. Because it's not even interesting exposition, it's just information about characters, places, and things we haven't seen, and have little to no influence on the story itself. Like here in the beginning, all we needed to know is that the princess is being sent on a mission to go get the help of Lord Blackthorn, so that she can help save her kingdom. That's all we need to know. But then they just get into a big fight about what Lord Blackthorn believes, and a bunch of other political BS we don't need to know. I mean, this nonsense is everywhere in Dragon, and this is how it makes my brain feel. You see this? It's not good. It's not good at all. Having your characters fight like this isn't good conflict. It's not furthering the story. It's not developing the characters. It's horrible, and all it makes me want to do is ingest an entire tub of Flex Seal. Though just like me, Dudeheart's had enough, and finds Freya's whole dragon slaying quest to be quite BS. So he makes the rational decision and just leaves the party. The group, minus Dudeheart of course, finally continues onward to slay the dragon at its lair. And of course Dudeheart's friends, who he's traveled with for a long time now, some even knowing him since they were kids.
He did not lie of his feelings or his intentions. I have known him since I was a child.
No, instead they decide to stay with the people they've known for like a day now. But of course, that money and land are worth a lot more than their friendship. It's just gonna, you know, take slaying a dragon and potentially dying to get it. As they stop near some big plastic thing, I don't even know, what the heck is that? What is that? Freya tells them that the dragon is not in its lair, so they're just going to have to wait until it gets back, I guess. Odd how Freya always seems to know where the dragon is. It's almost like she could have guided them out of the forest with her abilities. Oh well. But Freya's feeling the wilderness caller, so she breaks away from the group to have a vision of who is destined to slay the dragon and who will die. However, a little later, Crack Lady and Short Guy reveal they never actually slayed the Beast of Kensington. And finally they come clean about what they were really doing in Sid. Basically, Crack Lady and Short Guy tell them that they were going to stay a few days in the woods, come back to civilization with crazy stories about how powerful the dragon was, and sell the information about the dragon to...
Morgo?
Yeah, that guy. And tell him to kill it or whatever. I'm not even sure who this new character is. Will we even learn anything new about this character? I think we all know the answer to that. But after this reveal, like that, the lie doesn't impact the story and nothing significant is changed about the characters. Well, regardless, they push onward and gather on ye olde asphalt road, where they finally encounter the dragon, who for some reason sounds like a TIE fighter. Instead of doing what Dudeheart said they should do to beat the beast, they charge the dragon head on, flailing wildly at it like a bunch of doofuses. Those bushes aren't gonna help you. You're fighting a dragon, guys. Come on. Oh my god. Oh my god. It just looks like they're swinging at nothing. Oh my god. Oh man, she's wigging out. She's not doing good. However, the Crack Lady and the Short Guy get knocked over by the dragon's tail, and the Short Guy gets trapped underneath a fallen log. And because he's unable to move, the Short Guy gets eaten by the dragon. Oh no! What was his name again? Whatever. But as the dragon is snacking on that piece of wood, Fabian rushes forth, flourishes. Of course he does. Of course. And nicks the dragon's tail, which seems to do more harm to Freya than the dragon. Spooked by Fabian's attack, the dragon retreats for the time being to, somewhere. Why were they worried about this dragon again? I don't know. After the battle, Fabian and the ranger guy have a quick conversation, which boils down to this. I want you to stay here so that you can continue our mission should we fail to slay the dragon. Continue the main story. And like a shonen character, the ranger replies, No, you're my friends. I can fight too. You need me. But no, by the time it's all over, they both agree to fight together and nothing is developed or changed about their characters. Again. Anyway, in the next scene, Freya gives the princess a stick with the tip carved into a crude point and some leather wrapped around it. She says some cryptic stuff like, "In the heat of battle, all will be revealed," or some BS like that. Just tell her what it does. Like, geez, it's not that hard. There's no reason not to tell her what this stick does. Here, Freya also gives us a couple of revelations about the princess's backstory. And I gotta say, the princess's reaction is award-winning.
I cannot do this. I do not have the courage. I will surely fail.
It resides deep inside of you. It is your birthright. By my hand. The dragon. And my solution.
I don't understand.
Your father is the king. Done to ensure your ascension to the throne. But I am your mother.
And by award-winning, I meant, of course, winning a Razzie. Like, seriously, you got anything to say about this reveal? Maybe you can show more emotion than a marble slab? Maybe? The princess is literally told that Freya is her mother. This is a big reveal, which should shock any normal human being, but the only reaction the princess can muster is, wow, that kind of sucks, I guess. I guess at this point I shouldn't be surprised that the acting is terrible, since the acting in this film works about as often as a McDonald's ice cream machine. In the same scene, Freya also explains how when she dies, the king and the dragon will die as well, since they're tied to her essence or something.
Fates are intertwined. The dragon is vanquished. So shall I, and your father.
Well, if that's the case, does it work both ways? We're not told it doesn't. I mean, she knows she's going to die since they're on their way to kill the dragon, which will kill her in the process. And I'm sure, you know, as the mother of the princess, she'd much rather have them kill little old her than the giant ravenous dragon. But sadly, we're not going to get an answer about whether or not the magical essence connection thing works both ways, since we've only got like 15 minutes left of the movie. Though it's probably a good thing Dudeheart isn't around to hear this, because I'm sure he'd be the first to take her out if it meant skipping this whole dragon slaying side quest. Finally, after all that nonsense, our heroes get to the dragon's lair, and the lair of the threatening dragon is just some random patch of forest. In the 1981 film Dragon Slayer, there's bones and smoke and all that stuff outside the dragon's lair. I mean, just look at all this. It just screams, come here and you'll die. This immediately establishes the dragon as a force to be reckoned with, and develops some sense of atmosphere and presence. And since the dragon is the primary antagonist of the story, it's important these elements are firmly conveyed to the audience, because it creates a sense of danger for our characters. So, of course, in this movie, a movie called Dragon, where the goal is to kill the dragon in the end, they decided the lair of this dragon is just some random patch of forest. Gee, it would have been nice to have some money to make an interesting looking lair. Oh well. Finally, after all the walking and long-winded arguments and other nonsense, the big moment we've all been waiting for has finally come. That's right, it's the fight with the dragon. You know, the real dragon fight, the one that they've been building up to for a while now. Not that other nonsense that we saw earlier. I mean, the real fight, the big one. The one where many will die and a hero will rise, you know, and all that stuff. We can at long last see where the money is gone, because surely if it didn't go into, well, any of the movie, surely it went into the fight with the dragon. Our heroes make their plans, get into their positions, and as the air becomes taut with tension, it's time for another battle with the elves. Yeah, this action sequence just sort of happens, just like all the others. Like, the main characters get themselves into place, brace themselves for the fight with the dragon, and then we're just thrown into it. Did the elves track them down? Did the elves track the dragon? Are they near an elf settlement? Why is the elf settlement near the dragon's lair? Do they ally themselves with the dragon? How did the elves know that they were even here? I gotta lay down. Hold on. In the heat of battle, the stick transforms suddenly into a mighty spear, which costs like $80. I mean, that's what it does. That's all this stick did, is it turns into a spear. Why couldn't Freya tell her that's what it did? Later, a random dark elf approaches the princess, and rather than strike her, he kindly stabs the ground in front of her. And of course, being the nice guy he is, he waits for her to slowly rise, draw her sword, and then fight her. And then the group goes to fight the dragon. It's almost like we didn't need an action sequence beforehand. After that unnecessary battle, Fabian, the ranger guy, and the princess sneak up on the dragon, who I guess just wasn't bothered by the big battle that happened right beside his lair. Maybe he's just a heavy sleeper or something, I don't know. While the princess waits behind for the perfect moment to strike, the ranger guy and Fabian do battle with the dragon. I mean, if you want to call swinging at nothing a battle, look at this. This is the kind of stuff that gives me Birdemic vibes. Ew. Though as the fight goes on, the dragon eventually gets the upper hand on the ranger guy and pushes him aside with its wing. I guess. Well, regardless, the ranger guy is out of commission, leaving Fabian alone to take on the dragon. Fabian eyes the dragon down, steels himself before the mighty beast, and prepares to charge forth in the most spectacular, heroic, and completely not stupid attack I've ever seen, where I'm sure the princess will seize the opportunity Fabian is giving to her to kill the dragon and save her wounded love interest.
Now, Your Majesty!
Why was she just standing there? Did her brain stop working? I guess we'll never know. However, as the ranger dude is about to get killed, Dudeheart shows up the last minute to help everyone out.
Fuck yeah, you show him, Dudeheart. Although it would have been nice to know what motivated him to come back. Was it for the money? Was it for the princess? Was it for his friends?
I don't know. Then the princess, for some reason, gets some common sense and kills the dragon. Though their victory doesn't last for long because more dark elves show up. But the princess lifts the magic spear into the air, which stops the elves. I guess. A moment later, the ranger guy swoops in for a kiss that feels absolutely 100% earned. Because of course, all it takes to fall in love with someone is to make direct eye contact with a person and talk to them twice in a vaguely romantic way. After they're done sucking faces, we cut back to Dudeheart, who approaches the wounded crack lady, and in her final moments, he attempts to comfort her. Though they don't really talk about much before she finally dies. She just says something along the lines of, "We did it! We finally slayed a dragon." As if that had anything to do with fulfilling her arc or something. Then the bleed effect finally kicks in and it takes what little HP she had left. And then, she's gone. What was her name again? Whatever. And because the dragon was slain, Freya dies. The king dies off screen too. Okay. And our heroes mourn her death. Then, at the end of the movie, Freya's disembodied voice says some cryptic shit about what happens next, and then the movie ends with her dialogue continuing into the credits.
The forces of evil would rise again. The only hope for defending the land of Tiraspleen became the support of their once sworn enemy, the Elves of Fae. Together, they would find the courage to face the imminent attack. For inside all of us, there is a hero. But that is another story.
And that's it. That's Dragon. Thank God it's over. Dragon is a terrible, horrible, awful mess, with little good I can say about it. This has no good effort put into literally any aspect of the movie, and it supposedly had a budget of $500,000, so they don't have an excuse to use cheap wall hanger swords, walk around the same forest forever, or have makeup that looks worse than something a person might wear to a fraternity Halloween party. I've seen LARPers and cosplayers who have better costumes and makeup than this. No, I'm not kidding. These people have turned it into like an art form or something. No, seriously, it's incredible. These people are really talented. Anyway, Dragon is terrible. All of this is terrible. Yeah. Though I was looking for stuff online for Dragon, I started reading reviews on various websites for it, and some of them are pretty funny. So here's a few of my favorite reviews from people who've also had the unfortunate fate of having watched this movie.
When you have no budget and want to film a fantasy film, this is what you get. At least they used actors with real accents. In a word, crap. Will watch again in a year to make sure. Glad it only cost me £3. I'll forgive the low budget effects and filming. But what's with all the bloody talking? It's all they do. Talk, 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 wander somewhere and meet someone, talk, 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 fight end. This is the worst film ever. A low budget movie indeed. I was actually gonna watch Aragorn, but somehow the video gave me this low budget worthless movie. If you are looking for good bad fantasy, watch Attack of the Griffin. If you want to see bad fantasy, watch this. This movie shames fantasy.
So that's Dragon, and I'm pretty sure not even all the Jack Daniels in the world could numb the pain this movie brings me. At this point, it may be a contender for the worst fantasy movie I've ever seen, unless you know a worse one, which, I mean, if you do, and just so happen to leave a comment about it, it's not like I may check out that movie or anything. Nope, no way. I'm just saying. So if you like this video and enjoyed watching it slowly erode my will to live, why not give it a like? And if you want to see more content of this nature or other reviews or goofy videos I make, why not subscribe as well? It really helps support the channel. And if you want to stay informed on the future progress of videos, why not follow me on Twitter? Anyway, I give Dragon a 1 out of 10.